Alright, I should be back now. Sparta, not for this playthrough. I did not go through the fruit tennis minigame. There was no reason for me to. But I hate it too. Oh wait, that's right, you had to do it for Aqua. Yeah, it's bad. Alright. As I've mentioned before, I did not play through 0.2 when going through this at this particular era. I did 0.2 towards Kingdom Hearts 3. So, Kingdom Hearts 1. I love Kingdom Hearts 1. So, as I did before, I'll be talking about the gameplay mechanics, the level design era, the tutorial, and my overall thoughts. So, let's take a look at that. Alright, so, Kingdom Hearts 1. The first game in the series as by release date, second game chronologically. Now, this game has what I call original combat, which is just kind of a standard. It kind of just has a standard design where you just press a button, you hit. There's really nothing fancy to it. You have an attack, you have magic, you have items, you have summons. Magic. Pretty standard. These spells, they get more powerful as you get throughout the game. However, they do not auto recharge in this game. If you use a spell, you use up a little MP slot. Hitting enemies does kind of recharge this, but it is incredibly slow. Usually, you're gonna have to be using ethers. There are Keyblades in this game. As before, they are acquired through the main story and certain objectives. They offer certain extra abilities on top of adding to a base character's stats. There is armor in this game. Armor is special items that add to a player's base stats and may offer extra abilities. Summons. Summons also use magic. These are Disney characters that aid you in battle with special moves. These summons are acquired through summon gems. Synthesis. You can synthesize items if you go into Traverse Town. There is a Moogle there who will synthesize you powerful items. Synthesis is just you bring a bunch of synthesis materials to the Moogle, and he will tell you that you can create the specific item for it. There is the Gummy Ship, which is an on-rails shoot 'em up. You're flying through specific paths, taking out enemies in front of you. To go a little bit more in depth of the original combat, there is a triangle button option. If you press the triangle button, it aggroes your party. Donald and Goofy become a little bit more aggressive. They attack enemies if they are not attacking enemies. Just in case some of you didn't know that the triangle button actually has a function. Here we have the fun parts of Kingdom Hearts 1. It's really bad camera angle. Let's see. Let me just... Alright. So, like I said, the triangle button will aggro your party members. You have abilities. These are special moves that are added to the base combat. And you can equip them using ability points. So there's a little bit of resource management going on here. There is a counterattack in this game. It is very just... It kind of adds to the tank gameplay of this game. Counterattack is if you just hit an enemy while they're attacking, you get an extra attack. And then in my opinion, one of the best parts about this game are tech points. Tech points are additional experience points rewarded after you approach battle in a kind of a smart way. So this could be canceling an enemy attack, such as in the second phase of the final Ansem fight, if you have Arrow equipped, or if you block right when Ansem is about to do Dark Aura, you will get some tech points. You could also earn tech points by attacking enemy with a specific magic they are weak to. The mana in this game feels faster the less you have? I didn't know that. Learn something new about this game every single time. Yeah, so that's it for the combat. The level design era is Kingdom Hearts 1. Very level design that fits thematically with the world it's in. You've got this really just tall gauntlet of a castle that you can ascend. Agrabah has very tight streets because it is a city. The Cave of Wonders is full of traps. The Wonderland is appropriately trippy with its Bizarro level that has multiple exits and entrances. Captain Hook's pirate ship. There we go. That is a very loud noise. I wonder what that was. Captain Hook's pirate ship is confusing to navigate because it is a pirate ship, and if you've ever seen schematics of a ship, they're so confusing to navigate. There are more environmental interactions in this game and puzzles that kind of make traversal and navigation a little bit more challenging, for better or for worse, and it also makes these worlds feel alive. So for example, in Traverse Town, you have the hotel owner who is hiding behind the desk because he doesn't want to get attacked by Heartless. You have certain characters that show up in Agrabah after Jafar is defeated. Well, Traverse Town again is just full of just like the postcards, the gizmo shop, and all that. Oh, okay, that's interesting, because I knew the orange line was your recharge, but it's very slow. However, these environmental interactions that I have just mentioned, they can get in the way of combat. As I mentioned in Birth by Sleep, it's very possible to just grab onto a ledge by accident. And the camera angle for Kingdom Hearts 1, it has not aged well. It's a little bit better than its PS2 counterpart, where it was L1 and R1, because why? Hi Pixel, talking about Kingdom Hearts stuff. And this game has platforming. Now, I'm actually fairly okay with Kingdom Hearts 1's platforming, but I will admit, it is the weakest part of this game. Kingdom Hearts is not a platformer, and it stopped trying to be after this game. As you can see, Sora keeps moving to the left for some reason. Let's see. 2001 was a dark age. Right, so the tutorial. The tutorial is clearly a tutorial, but is mysterious. So what the tutorial, the Dive into the Heart section of Kingdom Hearts 1 does is that even though it is clearly a tutorial where it's showing you how to move, how to attack, what it does, it sets up multiple questions about the world and its universe, its story, and a lot of these questions get answered later on. For example, who is our protagonist? We know it's Sora later on. Who is speaking to us? The mysterious voice. Apparently it's Mickey, according to an old Ultimania from Nomura. I think it's Darkness at this point, but that's just a theory, a game theory. Where does the tutorial take place? We find out much later on that these stained glass platforms are actually parts of somebody's heart. I just had another theory, sorry. What are these shadow creatures that appear and attack us? We learn later that it's Heartless. Why do we have to choose these particular paths? And what do they mean? This, of course, is just more... That one is actually a very deep gameplay answer where it determines how fast you level up and which abilities you would get first. Why are there Disney princesses in these stained glass platforms? We learn later that these are the princesses of heart, very integral pieces to this game. And finally, why is Cinderella's hair brown? We never learn the answer to this question. Why is her hair brown, Nomura? But not only does it set up these questions, it also sets up the tone for the game. We will be facing the forces of darkness in some way, but we should never lose sight of the light. However, the tutorial actually extends into the first world proper, Destiny Islands. It is a beachy playground where players learn and progress their understanding of the combat and navigation abilities. And if the player has a good enough grasp on them, they do get rewarded through items, armor, and experience. So for example, if you try to further your understanding of the combat mechanics by fighting Tidus, Selphie, Waka, or Riku, or Tidus, Waka, and Selphie at the same time, you learn how to face multiple enemies at once or just one singular enemy, and you get experience for it. You do get some additional items like a pretty stone, which you just sell for money. By progressing the main story, by navigating the island to grab all these items for the raft, you are rewarded with items by Kairi, and through some of probably the most underutilized mechanic of grabbing boxes for platforming, you are rewarded with the only treasure chest in Destiny Islands, a piece of armor. So Destiny Islands acts as an extension of the tutorial, allowing the player to further their understanding of the combat and navigation mechanics. Okay. That was a lot. Let me drink some water. Everybody thought it was Ben Humble. That's what makes sense, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually that changes. Okay. So, overall thoughts. So, Kingdom Hearts 1 has the simplest gameplay. Its base combo is spiced up through the abilities and magic. Some abilities that I haven't really mentioned are like Sonic Blade, or Hurricane Blast, or the amazing Zantetsuken, the best one unless you're playing Chain of Memories. But that being said, there's not a lot of options to tailor combat to a player's specific preferences. You can, kind of up your magic abilities more by choosing the staff at the beginning, or having items that extend your magic meter, like Donald. But for the most part, Sora is supposed to be a relatively well-balanced character, having an equal amount of regular physical power and magical power. But as with all games, there is a primary strategy, and for this game, that is to cast Eroga and tank your way through enemies. And the thing is that because magic costs so much, and the recharge function of this game isn't as intuitive as the recharge meter in other games, you're really only ever going to be using Curaga or Eroga. Just because these magic abilities cost so much. Cure is, of course, very, very vital in this game because Donald doesn't fucking heal. But you'll primarily be using Cure or Arrow because Arrow protects you. And this is, in my opinion, the most unique form of arrow magic in the Kingdom Hearts series, and I love it and I miss it. So there's not a lot of incentive to explore a lot of the magic options because it is so heavily geared towards protecting yourself and healing yourself. Also, Sora moves sluggish in this game. He's pretty slow. there's a little bit of that early PS2 rather, early PS2 lag, or at the very least Sora just doesn't move as quick as you think he would. I always have this problem at the very beginning trying to fight Riku in Destiny Islands, when he goes up on his back and just does that kick. Sora doesn't move as fast as you want him to. And of course the camera, as I've mentioned, is absolutely awful in this game. The environmental props and all these things, they get in the way of the camera, and oftentimes you have enemies just flying out of nowhere, just absolutely bodying you. Like, if you don't move out of the way within 2 seconds of that final room in the end of the world, all you'll be seeing is the behemoth's ass. So, despite all of that, the gameplay has depth, of course, in two forms. First, as I've mentioned, is tech points. Tech points reward the player for approaching the combat in a more, with more thought and reserve. You take your time to attack enemies strategically. So if you time your attack to cancel an enemy, as you hit an enemy with their opposite element, or you block projectiles back to an enemy, you get tech points. They're extra experience points that you earn, and this actually motivates the player to approach future battles more carefully, and it deepens the understanding of the combat. There is a very good point that was brought up by Luminant. Gravity can be used on Xemnas. Gravity could also be used on Maleficent. Stop used on Maleficent. Stop used on the Phantom. Phantom is actually a very, very good boss fight for helping you understand the depth of the magic system in the combat. And Humble actually also does have a very good point. There's nothing that really indicates those weaknesses. So for Xemnas, the only way you're going to figure out he's weak to gravity is just guess. For Maleficent, you can use gravity on her little podium thing, and that brings it down like it does the treasure chest. Which Hollow Bastion itself teaches you about, which I stole that from Teal. I didn't know that until Teal talked about it in his video about Hollow Bastion, which I helped write. So, you know, there is this depth to it. The tech points really do help with exploring the deeper ends of the combat and kind of helping understand the magic system and its weaknesses. The environmental puzzles, such as casting magic on certain objects in the world, they also give the player a deeper understanding of the combat and the magic system, and also how it affects the world. It kind of gives the player a deeper sense that they're part of an actual game world, as opposed to just a level, if that makes any sense. There's a very fine line. Between being immersed in a level, being aware that you're in a level, and being immersed but also aware that you're in a level. There's a flow state there. I've mentioned the magic system already. You know, it kind of also feels like it's part of a game world, just kind of in the way that it's upgraded, and certain environmental puzzles. So, some of the upgrades for this game are granted through story events, but this is actually one of the more unique games for how the magic system progresses. So, for example, Aerith grants you Kurga after you read all of the Ansem reports. Gravity is granted after using the moon to close the keyhole in Halloween Town, which is pretty cool. And for the summon gems, Mushu, a fire dragon, is granted as a summon gem after defeating Dragon Maleficent. Almost every magic and combat upgrade reinforces the events and the way that the game world works. And so what happens is that these magic gifts and summon gifts, they all feel like natural gifts that you're given for progressing through the story. That might not have been as phrased as well as I was hoping. But so for the level design of this game, as I said, every world feels different. It's really, really refreshing to play through worlds that don't all feel like they're Disney set pieces. They have their own challenges to navigation, as I've mentioned, and some of those combat puzzles, they just kind of make the worlds feel alive. But of course, again, as I've mentioned, the camera is a bit frustrating. For the story, this is probably the best Kingdom Hearts story because it is the first one. It is the best paced, it is the best told because this was a smaller world. This was the first game. There wasn't a lot to set up. It was just, here's some Disney villains, here's some light and darkness dichotomy, here's the true villain, and here's some stuff going on with your friends. There's a lot of proper stakes building, proper twists, great characters. There's a great utilization of the Disney properties and the Final Fantasy properties. And it feels like there's actual growth in the characters and the game world by the end of the game, with Tougher Heartless after the keyhole is opened in Hollow Bastion. And, you know, Sora's abilities, and all that. And I think the best way to describe Kingdom Hearts 1 is that it's a great, solid example of a smaller JRPG, a good, solid JRPG. I would say that this is another great example of like just a good, solid, somewhat smaller JRPG would be Ni no Kuni 1. Now, Ni no Kuni 1 is not a small game by any means, but there's a lot of depth that has been put into the world building, and so does this game. This game has a lot of depth put into its world building. Everything feels natural. Everything feels like it should be there. And for me, I learned something new about this game almost every single time I play it. I've just learned that stop can be used on Maleficent, for example, and that magic recharge works faster the less magic you have. So that is Kingdom Hearts 1. Are there any questions or points that I could also talk about? Have you noticed this is like my actual 100% save file. So that's why I have the ultimate weapon. I didn't actually go and get the ultimate weapon on my chronological run. I think I might stop after this. My throat's hurting, and I know that we were gonna stream some Among Us. I will mention, as we get further throughout the series, these assessments are going to get a little bit longer because there's more story, there's more gameplay, mainly it's just more story added onto it. Oh, thanks, Humble. Yeah, I'm just trying to get like a really good sense of like, here's the game, here's this breakdown, here's the depth of its gameplay, its level design. Yeah, I'm gonna be finishing up real quick, Silver. I think I'll probably just end it right now. I know that we're gonna try to do some Among Us. So thank you for being here. Was I talking too fast? Again, I've never done this. I've never done this type of design talk stuff before, and I know that I talk fast when I'm nervous. But I hope people have enjoyed me talking about Kingdom Hearts, the level design, and the gameplay, and all this, because this isn't talked about much, like, really at all. Everybody talks about like the gameplay stuff, but not like holistically the series, just from a game design perspective. So this is why I really want to do this, and I hope that people enjoyed it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Yeah, thanks. you. And I'll see y'all later. This will be going up on YouTube, by the way. I'll be putting this on my channel. So, again, thank you for being here.